Hey, everybody, welcome back to the 17th episode of Taps and Patience. I am AJ with Design the Everything, here with Harrison of Precision Ingenuity and special guest James Cerven of Cerven Solutions. Hi, James. How are you doing?
Not too bad. How about you guys?
I'm doing all right.
Doing
Now,
great.
for the audience, since there's three of us and there's normally two of us, I don't want to make all the voices confusing. Plus, I have a mill running like 6 feet behind me. So I'm going to be muted for the majority of this podcast. I will still be here. You'll still get the occasional interjection and sarcastic comment. But for your sake, I'm going to stay muted most of the time. So, Harrison, James, take it away.
Well, thank you. So, James, I think this is the first time that I've actually talked to you, through voice, not
Definitely,
through
definitely.
text.
More than 10 words at once.
So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So, in September 2020, my brother and I decided to start our business, Cerven Solutions. And it pretty much just came out of like being bored at our day jobs and like kind of just running into the typical issues at day jobs where it's like, oh, I want to do this, but my boss won't let me, or like, oh, I think this should be better, but my boss won't let me. So we were kind of just like, hey, let's start something in the garage. So we kind of just cleared out half of our parents' garage, and then we stuffed a Tormach 440 in there, and then we had
Mm-hmm.
that till November of the next year. So last November we got rid of it, and we shipped that to a guy in Texas, and then we bought the sill, and then in October of this year we moved the sill into the shop that you can see here. So now we have the sill in here and a Fanuc Robo drill in here, which is
Oh, wow.
kind of going not too well currently.
Uh-oh.
We can get into those issues if you want. It's quite the story. So
All right.
yeah, that's pretty much everything about us. So
So, what was your previous job? Just out of curiosity, what did you used to do?
yeah, so I'm pretty young, so I haven't worked too many jobs. My only like legit job was I worked at a sheet metal manufacturer, and they did like military parts for like Curtiss-Wright 901D, just some
Gotcha.
different military companies. So I kind of just did like some assembly there, some packaging and shipping and stuff, and then a lot of shaking stuff out of the punches and stuff. So just basic
So,
running around kind of work.
did you have any machining experience or background whenever you guys made this jump, or did you just kind of
No, just YouTube.
just swing for the fences? I
Yeah.
did the same, so don't worry.
Which the more I do this, the like so I know a few guys who are in their 50s that started shops, and then I look at them like,
Hmm.
dang, I know I wouldn't have the patience for that, but it's also not a terrible idea cuz like I went to a shop probably a month or two ago, and like the guy just started 2 years ago and he has like 5 DMG Moris, a Zeiss
Hmm.
CMM, a new Sugami Swiss, I always say that wrong. And he literally like he owns the building, he owns all the machines just outright. He has like I think 9 employees on his team now, and it's just like yeah, I just saved up and I did well, and now I wanted to start a shop, and it's like, dang, that's like 99% less stress than
Oh, yeah.
trying to start. So I definitely don't regret starting it, but I can see the benefits of waiting till you have money for sure.
Gotcha. So did you guys have any money saved up, or did you just like full send, I'm quitting cold turkey and we're just gonna see how long
So
this rides?
in September, I think we originally just put about like 8 grand in. So the Tormach was like we bought it pretty bare bones. It was like 7 grand. So we put like we bought some steel for the frame and stuff. We bought some random like tools, like a few end mills or whatever. Just
Hmm.
really basic stuff. So in the very beginning, I think we put in like eight grand, and then the rest of that year, I think that topped out at like 30 grand, which was mostly out of savings, but like barely any work. And
Yeah,
then after about 6 months, we didn't have to put any more money in. Pretty much once we started Xometry, we didn't have to put any more money in. And since then, it's just been self sustaining. We aren't
that's
taking
awesome.
anything out yet.
Hey,
um,
I
but
I think we all know that feeling, all three of us.
yeah, because like
Because
I'll tell my parents or whatever, like, oh, how'd you do this here? And I was like, oh, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, that's awesome. I'm like, yeah, but I didn't, I literally made like no money. My friends are like, oh, that's
Yeah,
so cool. You have a shop. And I was like, yeah, but I literally don't make any money. Like literally
yeah,
nothing.
yeah. So we have become this. We are the next generation of that stereotypical business owner that makes nothing, but everyone's like, "Oh, sure, he's doing really well." It's
Yeah.
like, nope.
Yeah. And then you see some people that are doing super well, like early on, and you're like, something's
Yeah,
weird.
yeah. Well, we had a parade, um, a Christmas parade at my town, and I saw this really young construction company that was coming through, all young guys, and they were driving around in like these lifted trucks and like all this, like you could just see like dollar signs as they're
Yeah,
driving
yeah.
by with on the Christmas parade. And we're like, I wonder how long they're actually going to last. Like, did
Yeah,
they
for
like
sure.
have a huge cash influx, or did they just take out crazy loans
Yeah,
and just hope that it doesn't catch up to them?
for sure.
So,
A lot of people were like, "Oh, are you gonna have like a grand opening?" And I was like, "That just gives me like Silicon Valley vibes of like failed startup after a year."
mhm.
I'm like, "I'm not doing that. I'm not
Yeah.
putting that spotlight on me."
Yeah, no. Well, that's awesome. So tell me about your Xometry experience because I'm interesting how it'll be interesting to see how it compares to mine.
Okay, so Xometry is like probably the most like polarized thing in the machining community for the past like 6 months to a year, and it's
Yeah.
hilarious because like for us, we've done well with it. It's the only reason we have two machines on the shop.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 97% of our revenue this year, which I'm going to be totally honest,
Really.
it's a horrible idea. Like I totally wouldn't recommend anyone do that because like business 101, never have one source of income. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, like I'm not going to not if I can. And this year we'll definitely be expanding more, but it worked really well for this year. Um, so Xometry works really well for us, I think, because I think it's best for low overhead shops. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Also, it's just us two, so we're able to kind of have faster turnarounds. There's not like things don't go through long processes. Like at my old job, I remember it would take like days sometimes just for parts to get to QC because they were
Mm-hmm.
doing like millions in revenue. So it's like you have a backlog of stuff. For us, it's like just do a job, inspect it, ship it, and just like job after job,
Yeah.
just get it out. Like
Mhm.
it's kind of just single job flow. Um,
Yeah.
that's not going to
Especially
be
when
really. Sorry, go on.
I was gonna say, especially when you only have like one machine, it kind of forces you
Yeah.
into that mentality. Although you said you got another machine now, so but
Yeah, that should be interesting. But yeah, so it's pretty much just like at a smaller shop size, you know everything about everything. Like there
mm-hmm.
there's no waiting for things. There's nothing like it's like you run the machine, and especially having my brother, it's like we can like I'll run the machine, he'll inspect, he'll be shipping the Xometry job. You know, there's like the processes. They have a few
Yep.
processes, and
Mm-hmm.
then like it's just job after job. So that works for a smaller shop. I think as you grow, it might not work. But there's also I think a lot of people do Xometry wrong because all the time everyone is like, "Oh, you lose money on Xometry. I lost so much money." It's like you literally take the job. It's not like they're forcing it on you. Like if you don't think you're gonna
Yeah.
make money, like yeah, occasionally you're gonna be like, ah shoot, I really thought I could do this, I lost a little money, but it's like no no one's forcing you to take the job, and you're definitely gonna like make mistakes sometimes. Like we've definitely,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say we've ever lost money just because we don't pay employees, we don't pay ourselves, so in terms of time we're not really losing money. um we should be thinking about it like that, but
Yeah.
like we're not paying ourselves. But um, I also think that there's a few tricks for doing Xometry effectively. Like I always have it open on a screen on my laptop. Like it's
Okay.
always open, and like I know a lot of people will let the screen refresh. I always refresh it more often because if you wait for it to refresh, there sometimes will be jobs. If you refresh it on your own, there'll definitely be jobs before it refreshes itself. And the good jobs
Really?
always, yeah, yeah, for sure. And
I
the
didn't
good
know that.
jobs always go first. Like you've probably
Well,
been
I
like,
do know
oh,
that.
you're like, I'm gonna take this job, and then you go to take it, and it's like, oh, someone took it already. Like
Yeah,
that's
I've definitely seen the job refresh on the board, gone, "Ooh, that's a good job," and I click on it and I go to take it, it says this job's already gone.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so,
So for Xometry, it's all about like you have to be there all the time, which is kind of
mhm.
like you kind of can lose good like train of thought or like focusing on something because I'm like, ooh, let me look at the Xometry board or whatever.
Gotcha.
But it's definitely been pretty good for us. So
So here's a couple questions because I have, we haven't honestly done a Xometry job in probably 3 to 6 months. I'd say
okay.
I don't know how long it's been, but it's been a while. No, not 6 months. It's probably been about 3 months. Um, have you noticed with time that the algorithm gives you parts more based off of your capabilities in previous parts, as that like learned what you guys are looking for over time, or is it pretty random and it's just kind of you try to keep the board clear of stuff you can't do, and then just when stuff comes in you make sure it's something you can or can't do?
Yeah, I would say yes and no, because Xometry changes their algorithm. It's kind of like YouTube. So like sometimes YouTube start like certain YouTube creators will do really well, and then the algorithm
Mm-hmm.
changes, and it kind of hurts their monetization or it hurts the way their channel grows.
Mm-hmm.
Xometry is the same for their algorithm, but yes, it definitely has gotten better over the past like year and a half. That's also really, really important with Xometry. I think it's like an absolute must to like focus on a niche on Xometry and like literally only do that. Because so our shop, we kind of like realized we needed a niche to kind of be
Mm-hmm.
relevant. And then that way you're in people's heads like, oh, Cerven Solutions does blah, blah, blah. So
Mm-hmm.
for us, it's all about small parts. Sub 2 inches is like where we shine, which
Mm-hmm.
is why we got the high speed robo drill. But so we try like unless the job is really good, we only take small work on Xometry, and it's definitely gotten better because you'll see on there they have like 120-inch parts or whatever, huge parts. That
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really happen anymore. Occasionally, we'll see like a 60-inch plate or whatever, but for the most part, it's definitely gotten a lot better, and we're seeing a lot of the same company come back. There's one company that we've done work like 20 jobs for now. Like it's
Oh, really?
consistently coming back. Yeah. There's a like
So
yeah,
is
go
that
on.
repeat work, or is it like we have one customer that has specifically requested that we quote their parts or we do their jobs, or is it like repeat work?
Yeah, sometimes there's a little bit of repeat. There's one customer that mainly does a repeat like a few times a year, which is nice. Um, and then we've only had one customer which specifically requested we did it. Um, Sometimes I've heard that's because the previous partner either did well, we could have done well, or the partner before us did so bad that they were just fine with us. So I took this job once, and the guy was like, "Make sure you deburr these parts." Like the Xometry engineer emailed me. I was like, I'm gonna deburr the parts for you." Yeah, and he's like, "Okay, just checking." And he sent me a part of what the previous person did. It was like this little UHMW part, and UHMW is like the most annoying thing on the planet to deburr. It
Hmm.
literally looked like a piece of fuzz. Like the whole part was just
Oh my.
like it was so bad. So we were like laughing about that. So sometimes that's the reason you'll get like make sure this partner does it again, which isn't the most
Mhm.
flattering, but like, hey, I'll take it. So yeah, that's kind of how that works.
Interesting. I'm glad to hear some positive uh, views on Xometry, because I have my views on Xometry. I really liked how it was in the early stages because it allowed me to experiment and try things that I had never done before.
Yeah,
And sometimes I'd bite off more than I could chew, and I would spend, instead of like one day, I'd spend like 4 days trying to get it right, and eventually I'd get it right. I don't think
mhm,
I ever really shipped a bad part on purpose. If there was something wrong with it, it might have been something that I couldn't measure accurately.
yeah,
Um, I think we only had one. We've only had one thing that we've ever been dinged on, and it was for shipping. But it allowed me to grow as a machinist, and it forced me by all the inspection processes. It forced me to become a better machinist. I don't know if you had similar experience where.
yeah, for sure. I mean, we've done 220 jobs by now. And
Okay.
if we were just on our own, there's no way we would be doing that variety of jobs. I'd say like literally probably 200 of those are different. And like for a 1-year-old shop, 2-year-old shop to get that kind of experience and like variety of parts and materials like copper, brass, Torlon, Teflon, like um, Peak, Vespel, just all these random materials. Um, you come across them in normal shops, obviously, but like to get all that experience in a short amount of time, I think is really powerful. And
Mm-hmm.
it also kind of, I think it's critical for shops to have like a niche. I think it helps margins, it helps you be known for things. And I think Xometry really helps you figure that out early, because we used to do like bigger parts and we're like, ah, this kind of like, this isn't really our thing. And then it's like small parts, we just kind of found that's what we were really good at. So now that's what we do. That's what we market to outside customers of Xometry. And that's kind of just what we do now. And I think that helped because I know a lot of shops that still don't have a niche, which I guess not everyone needs one. Like if you're making fine money, like good for you. That's awesome. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of, I just find that important. I don't really know how relevant it actually is, but that's what we found. I've been meaning to make a YouTube video on Xometry because there's a lot of people in the machining industry that make ridiculous claims, but there's also claims that Xometry makes that I don't think are necessarily true. I want to try to make like a very unbiased video. Like when
Yeah.
Xometry says like, "Oh, Xometry is great for filling um your downtime." It's really not, because if you're busy 90% of the year and then
Mm-hmm.
you're on there, like there's going to be nothing on the board. And if there is anything, it's going to be some ridiculous part. So
Yep.
to actually make money on Xometry, you need to be on there all the time. Like you need to
Yeah.
have it very in like on the front in the front of your mind. Like you can't
Yeah.
just go on Xometry and be like, "Oh, I'm slow this week, man. Let me go make a couple grand." Like it's not going to happen unless you spend more than you're making.
Yeah.
So Xometry definitely makes some false claims, but there's false claims coming from everywhere.
Yeah. I definitely would agree with that because it's one of those things as we've started to we are probably way more diversified than we need to be, honestly, and we've had several talks about this. But that has hurt us on Xometry and made it really hard to stay focused on Xometry because we're doing so many different things. I don't have Xometry on the forefront of my brain, and every time I go to
Mhm.
Xometry, like I'll think about it some week, and I'll go pull up Xometry's page, and I'll clear through it. I'm like, okay, there's like nothing here,
Yeah,
and then I won't think about it for a while until
yeah,
I, get
for sure.
get slow again.
And I feel like this is such a hard industry to be super diversified in, because like everything is so expensive. Like
Mm-hmm.
we recently switched everything over to Lang fixturing, and it's like cool, $1,000 for like the subplate, $1,000 for the vise, and then it's like, oh, I need to tram my plate. You need $1,000 tramming plate too. And I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh. So it's like if I had like 10 different vices, like that's like easily 10 grand right there. It's like if I do
Mm-hmm.
small parts, I have one vice, and that vice is literally all I use now. And then I have like my ER collet fixtures, and it's like I have three fixtures that can do 95% of the work I do now. So I
Oh, that's
think that's
awesome.
valuable. Um, and like things like even inspection equipment, like there's only so many bore gauges and pin gauges that you really can afford, because like that stuff just going to cost you like an arm and a leg. It's crazy. We
Mm-hmm.
just picked up a vision system that'll be coming in January, and that was about 50 grand. And I don't want to do that again.
That's completely understandable.
Yeah.
Uh, well, that's cool. It sounds like you guys have been extremely successful on the Xometry side of things. A lot more than I've heard from anyone else, at least in recent years.
Yeah, we've done well. It's I still have trouble recommending it though, because like a guy right down the road from me has an X7, and I pushed him really hard. I'm like, dude, you gotta try Xometry. Try Xometry. I was like, we're doing well with it. Like, gotta try it. And he's tried it, and just like he showed me his board, and he's on there all the time. Like he's really trying, and it's literal like 60-inch part with like a eighth-inch through hole. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm talking about. Just like the craziest things. And the poor dude just has like zero luck on the board. And I'm like, dang. Like sometimes I guess the algorithm just doesn't favor you. So
Yeah.
I'm more weary of recommending it. But if I see like shops on Facebook that are like, oh, I need help because like I might have to close my doors, I'm always like, just at least try it. Just try it. Like
Yeah.
it's literally free to sign up. They used to pay you $500. They don't do that anymore. But like it's free to try. Nothing can hurt. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely more weary now.
Okay. Um, let's see here. So, another quick question. Xometry usually requires on some jobs for you to have material certifications.
Mhm.
With that in mind, do you stock a lot of material or do you order um, for every job you take, do you order material for that job?
So a lot of the times we don't have a huge stock of material. We do stock our material, and if it has a cert, we label it with like MC19, and then we have a Google Drive, and that has all of our certs organized.
Okay.
So we do stock our stock with a cert if it has one.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, like we don't have a huge selection, and the Xometry selection of material is so huge. So a lot of the times we still are buying material. Our plastic supplier does have plastic certs. That's something McMaster-Carr doesn't have. So we've
Oh,
kind of
cool.
not been able to buy certed material from McMaster, which sucks because, like getting stuff the next day is always nice. Um, but the other place is also much cheaper. Bodecker Plastics. If
Mm-hmm.
you haven't heard of it, definitely check it out. I know a lot of the plastics places are pretty like similar on prices, but this place has a good selection, so we like to use it. They have like
Cool.
a $50 minimum. So that's the only annoying thing because now we have like 200 feet of 1/8 inch Delrin rod. Because like they're like, oh yeah, a foot is like $1 or something, or like 8 feet is like $1 or some ridiculous thing. So I spent like $300 on Delrin for like a bunch of different sizes, incrementing in like a 1/4 inch, and now I have literal like 100 pounds of Delrin, and it was like $300. It's funny. Delrin is so cheap.
Yeah, that's that is funny. So you mentioned you're trying to get more local customers, and I might have AJ here jump in on this because um, I've been trying to figure out how to get more customers myself locally. Um, and AJ does a lot of the Kickstarter stuff to reach his customers. So how are you trying to reach your customers?
I would say local is definitely nice. We have a few big companies around us. I recently just found this out, but we're pretty much like in like the literal hub of like the world for medical stuff. Like apparently New York is like the place for medical device companies, biotech companies are in Boston. That's like the hub there. So I've been reaching out to a lot of medical companies. Um, I'm not really trying to do so much local because they'll be like the guy that's like, "Oh, can you make this car part for $15?" And I'm like, "No, I won't stay in business. Like, I'm sorry, I just can't." So it's that. I'm trying to target like more of like the higher end customers, but at the same time, since this is already the hub for those kind of places, it's like everyone has their supplier a lot of the times. There's a few massive shops around here that are like a local shop has 300 robo drills, and like all they do is medical. But I'm trying to. I have to talk with that guy this coming week about trying to get maybe a little bit of work from him. So a lot of it is finding other shops that do what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the local customers is kind of like not like I feel like shipping is so easy these days that like you don't even need to have local customers unless it's like there's some people that prioritize lead time a lot. So IBM is like 30 minutes from our shop, so we're gonna go there once we have the new machine up and running. Be like, hey, we're 30 minutes away. Like we could do parts really fast for you. And like IBM's pocket is literally like it doesn't end. Like they have
Mm-hmm.
like an awesome budget. So something like that is a great local shop I want to try to get work from, especially like the supercomputer work they're doing over there. So that'd be pretty cool. But also like a lot of companies in California, I'm trying to reach out to just anywhere where there's like good money. I don't know.
Hmm. That's interesting. AJ, do you have any thoughts on any of this that we've been talking about?
Not specifically on local customers, though. Maybe I think we could have had that exact same conversation and replaced the term local customer with non-Xometry customer.
That's true.
Um,
Yes.
because yeah, you don't necessarily need local customers, but you do need some non-Xometry
Oh,
customers.
100%. Yeah, I'm
But
looking. My goal for this year is like 10 solid outside of Xometry customers. I have a few quotes that I have to get out this week, and that I'm waiting to hear back from new customers. So we'll see if that pans out, but I don't know.
so then let's change the question to, instead of trying to find local customers, how do you find a customer anywhere in the US? Like, do you just start Googling businesses in the US that might need my type of machining? Like,
Yeah, I've done. I've
how do you
just been like
how do
Googling
you
like
find them?
medical device companies, and then I found a list of like 1,000 medical device companies. I was like, oh, perfect. Now I have 1,000 companies to call. I've called like 150 of them so far, and I have like 20 emails or whatever. The only problem with
Oh,
that is though, I'm going to send emails and they'll probably go to like spam. So going to meet people in person is definitely like the most valuable way of reaching out to someone. But there's so many lists online. And also, like, I get a lot of work from people on Instagram. I have a potential really big job that I sent out a quote for today. And it's just a guy on Instagram. I just talk to a lot of people, and you're like, "Hey, this is what I do," and like, "Hey, this is what I do," and just keep saying that, and then it's like in their head, like, "Oh, this small part came across my desk." Like, I don't like small parts, but Cerven Solutions does. So that's I kind of just try to keep it in people's heads, like, "Hey, this is what I do." Like, I'm always open for more work. Please give me work. So, and then I'm also like, oh, you do prototype work? Like, well, I just got a machine that I could do production for. So if you're going to turn away the production, I can do that. So I'm always
nice.
just bugging people on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram.
So do you just, is it people that you follow, or do you just like say, I'm going to spend an hour and I'm going to try to find different
I
people I can bug?
I did that at first, and it just gets depressing because you're like I'm going to dedicate this hour to finding work, and then you just get like 10 rejections or no one answers, and like you don't find work. So I kind of just gave up on that approach, and now like I'm always just scrolling through Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook, and this guy's like, I lost my supplier today or whatever, and I'm like, I quick message him like, hey, I can do that or whatever, or someone like posts pictures on Instagram. Someone was like doing this like little 5-axis part and like 4 setups on their mill, and I messaged him was like, "Dang, you should sub that out to someone with a 5-axis because like that looks miserable." And it's just like I just like poke people around all day, and like I don't know, it kind of works. I think it should pay off more this year because I think it takes time with you those kind of things where you kind of just like slowly put like pressure on people, not pressure, but like just put them in the back of their head. I think that kind of takes more time than if I was more direct. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it should work. I don't know. I'll have
Okay,
to let you guys know next year if it worked.
fair enough.
It sounds valid to
Well,
me.
yeah, that's actually a really good strategy that I hadn't really thought of. Is like I see a lot of cool stuff on Instagram, and sometimes I reach out to people and go, "Oh, that's a cool thing," but I've never thought about that being like, "Hey, you need someone to make like more of those," or
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes it's like awkward because it's like, oh, I talked to this guy and we're like, we're not friends, but like we're Instagram friends or whatever, and I'm like begging for work or whatever. But at the same
yeah,
time, like I want work. Like
yeah,
I want to be
it's
here till 11 p.m. every night suffering because that's when you know you're making money. If I'm not here, like my parents are like, oh, you work till like 7 every night this week, and I'm like, yeah, only 7. Like if I'm not here till 11, I'm not hitting my goals. Like that's what I want to be doing every night.
oh
So I don't
man,
know. I need more work.
I understand the needing more work thing. Um, so do you now changing gears slightly again? Do you have any questions for me or AJ about
I'm
anything?
I follow AJ a lot more, and I think I'm more familiar with AJ. I do want to ask him about the Kickstarters, but I think I want to ask you kind of more of what you do because I was scrolling through the post, but wasn't super clear on what you do, which isn't like an offense or anything. I'm just not clear on what you do.
Well, we don't really know what we do either,
Oh,
so
okay.
that's okay.
Well, now you have a
So,
lot of revenues to explore. You have a lot of
yeah.
options.
So we started out with the Xometry side of things. Or let me back up a little bit. Me and my cousin are mechanical engineers, and that's our background. And we were in a similar situation where we did not like our current jobs very well, just because it was very stressful and challenging. And I'd always loved watching the machining stuff. And so we got a Tormach and started working on it in the evenings, and then eventually quit our jobs and started that. And so we started down the Xometry path. And then we ran into troubles where it just we were taking so many different types of jobs on Xometry that I feel like our board got muddied over time,
Hmm.
and that might have been our fault. And just because we would take anything that we thought we could potentially possibly do, it didn't matter if it was small, large, what type of material it was. If we thought we could machine it on the Tormach, and it was even remotely possible, we'd give it a shot. Um, and it served us well for education, but maybe not for job board consistency. Um, and then that kind of led us into a dry spell where we decided that we'd do a Kickstarter, and that's when we did our deck defenders. And those did all right, but we probably invested a lot more time, energy, and money than we'll ever get back out of it. Just because we didn't know what we were doing and we thought it was a really cool product that didn't take off. Um, and then after that, we started kind of down the gun route. Well, we got a lathe somewhere in there, and then we started doing some overflow work for a local machine shop, and that was awesome. Um, it was really, really well paid work, and I'd love to get more of that style of work. The lathe, any jobs that I can get, any sort of mass production on the lathe is a awesome revenue stream.
Yeah, totally.
Um, they're simple parts and they're real easy to set up and automate, even on a 2-axis lathe. So I love that kind of work. I'll take all of that I can get.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
and then we kind of came up with a strategy, 3 or 4 months ago, where we wanted to get into gun stuff because there's a big gun community around us, and there's been a lot of gun businesses that have come and gone in this area. And right now, there's not a lot of local machine shops that do stuff for people. And so our thought process is we want to get our name out to more businesses. So if we start doing gun stuff and then kind of slip in, hey, we also do production machining, or engineering work or whatever, um, then that's what we'd like to get so we can get some of the higher volume production stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
We're kind of
and
like Fifth Axis and Kurt, how they kind of
yeah,
like put it out there, but they're like, hey, we also do machining work.
yeah. And I would say our specialty, if I had to pick one, is one-off prototypes from nothing. So we have people that come to us, they say, hey, I want something and it doesn't exist. And so we design it, we 3D print it, we machine it, and we get it finished, and it looks like a finished product when it's all said and done. And there's not many shops that can do the full product life cycle in a short period of time. The problem is there's not a lot of that work and it's not really profitable. But it really fits within our skill set. And so the problem is that we could specialize in any one of those areas, but we really like doing all of it. So, we could
Okay, that's
specialize
interesting.
in the design side because we're mechanical engineers. We could specialize in the prototypes side. We could specialize in higher volume stuff, which I would love to get. I honestly, any high volume stuff I can get, I will take, and I would love to specialize in that. But I haven't been able to find consistent high volume stuff, and so I've had to try to plug holes with other things, and that's kind of where we've been.
That makes sense. So, are you like, do realistically, well, not realistically, like 5 years from now, do you think you'll have found a specific thing you want to do, or do you think you'll kind of always just be like, oh, we do this and this and this and this?
If I could do, I would like to develop all of these different areas and then fill them out with people. So I'd like to
Mm,
have different departments that specialize in things, but all be under one roof. So that
okay.
would be my ideal. Is I would like to build sections of the business and have sections of the business specialize, but still be able to do it all from under one roof. That's kind
Mm.
of my current idea of what it would look like. So I'm specialized, but I'm still doing a lot of different things. If that
Yeah,
makes
that
sense.
makes sense. I think the fact that you guys can go from nothing to a finished thing is cool because if someone comes to us with something we're like, it's like that's like my brother's an engineer. I made it halfway before I I got too bored. I quit. I couldn't finish. School is not my thing. Um, but I think that's valuable because there's a lot of shops that don't touch that work. But I see what
Mm-hmm.
you're saying because I assume like if someone comes to you with a print, that means they're serious enough where they probably have an engineer on hand or they outsourced work and spent money. And usually
Mm-hmm.
when someone spends money before they have something made, that means they're probably willing to spend money, more money,
Mm-hmm.
obviously. But if someone's coming to you with nothing, I'm assuming they're kind of just like low budgeting it, which could be more unfortunate, but maybe not.
It depends. There's some people that have a decent amount of money, and there's a lot of people that have ideas. And we have one gentleman that we're working on a product, and it's really testing our ability. It's been something we've been working on for about a month or two now. Um, and we still haven't got the first one because it's like a sheet metal pressing and welding, which is like nothing that you'd necessarily see in a machine shop. But we're machining the molds and trying to come up with the fixturing to actually come up with the welding. But if we can get it all done, he would be ordering like 100 to 300 of these items, and it'd probably be on a reoccurring basis.
Okay,
Um,
that's awesome.
and and then yeah, so that would be awesome. And then we've kind of gotten into the laser engraving side of things, and that's taken off way more than any of the machining.
Hmm.
Um, and so that's been very interesting as well. That
Oh,
was
did
kind
it
of like
freeze?
we got it because of the gun stuff,
Uh-oh.
but because we're on the
Okay.
machining side, we're finding people who, we're going to them, we're like, hey, we can do machining, but we also have laser engraving. And they're like, oh, really? What can you do with that? And it's like, well, we can do this, this, and this. And they're like, we don't know anyone that can do that. So can you do this? And so the
Hmm.
laser, I feel like, is the most specialized item in our shop that separates us from all other machine shops right now.
That's
Um,
cool. Is the laser high margin?
Most of the time, yes.
Okay.
Uh,
I would
there,
assume so only because there's no material fixturing or anything. But
it's
there's
just
probably a little bit of
time.
fixturing. Okay.
It's mostly just your time. The problem is, um, we do a lot of Etsy stuff as well, and the Etsy stuff can be hit or miss on how much money you're making. Because like we do like a coin,
Hmm.
and we charge like we make the coin from scratch and then we laser engrave it and we sell pre-made designs, and so we'll sell a coin with a pre-made design for like $15. We're taking scrap material that cost us nothing and turning it into $15 little coin pieces, and we can get out of a foot stick, we can get 10 pieces. So I mean, it's pretty awesome in terms of your return on investment because it's just your time, and I can make the coins pretty fast. The problem comes in when we go, okay, well, we'll also do custom coins on Etsy for like $25, and sometimes someone wants their initials, and it's like, hey, I made 10 extra bucks for typing someone's initials in a font and then engraving it and sending them the coin. And other times it's like, hey, I have a picture of my dog jumping and catching a frisbee, and I would like you to, get rid of the background and, add some text around him and put him in like a little house and like all this graphic design work that we're not really graphic design artists, and we should probably turn some of that down. Um, but we haven't, and that can take up a lot of time. And then you're like, man, I've spent 2 hours working on this coin. I've burnt through 4 coins because I'm testing the engraves and they're not working well. And we finally got it. And did we make money? I mean, yes, but our hourly rate was like $2 an hour. So
Yeah, that's something I've definitely struggled saying no, especially when people come to the shop now. They're like, "Hey, can you make me this thing?" It's so hard to just be like, "No," and I'm like, "Oh
yeah,
yeah, maybe," and then I'm like, "Please never come back again." Like, I really
yeah,
hope I don't have to like actually make your thing or whatever.
yeah.
Um, so I know a guy in a garage shop, and he's making like bananas money. Like how are you still doing your day job? Like, why have you not quit? That kind of thing. And it's like
Mm,
he was like the most valuable thing I learned early on was to just say no. Like he turns away so much work, but like
yeah,
I feel like it's important. I have yet to learn it, but like I know it's important. I don't have the backbone sometimes to say no, and that's why it's hard for me. But I definitely need to learn it because I think it's a valuable thing.
yeah. Yeah, I will say one thing about that laser because I was just thinking about it. We did get a really cool job. I had a guy call me on Saturday, and I didn't make it out there until Sunday. I told him that we wouldn't do anything on Saturday, but on Sunday I was like, I'll be out there for a few hours. He works for the university, and they're making a CPU cooler, and they wanted to laser out material down like so many microns down so they could try to fit it up to a CPU because they're doing like research for like IBM or something. And it was so like we get some of that weird stuff too because of our broad range of stuff. And so it's like I would never see that stuff, which who knows what type of doors that could open with the university if we do well. And then he just starts talking to all of his university buddies. Like that's how I always vision it, and that's why I have a hard time saying no, is because like
Yeah.
this job that I'm doing, I might lose money, but like whoever he goes talk to, if I can keep him happy, and that's honestly how we've got them all. Almost all of our work has been referenced because we
Hmm.
do something that's like, man, I lost my butt on that. I didn't make very much money, and then that person goes and like talks to 10 people, and then like 3 of them like show up at my door and they're like, "Hey, can you do this or do that?" And it's like, I mean, sure, we'll give you a
Yeah,
quote.
for sure.
So,
I think we've kind of had the same experience with some stuff like word of mouth. The only thing that makes me nervous with that on our end is like, I know like I watch Shark Tank a lot, so I'll see like they'll have a business or whatever and it's good, but the future scaling is what will kill the business, which is the problem because it's like things work now, but if that 10x's, will it work then? But that's what I'm doing now to rely off from then. So
mhm.
it makes me nervous because like if I do this now and it works, and I'm working towards multiplying this, but that multiple will kill me. So I don't
Yeah.
know. Because
Well, I think when you're in the early stages like we are, you have to experiment with a lot of things to figure out what fits.
oh,
And
for sure, yeah,
you were fortunate to kind of figure that out with Xometry. I haven't had that aha moment with anything that I've done yet that says, "Oh, this is a big flag that says go this direction," and I will jump on that bandwagon and head that direction.
mm,
I haven't had a moment like that yet where I could be like, okay, I can turn everything away now and go off into the sunset and specialize over here.
yeah, for sure. That makes sense.
That's been my hardest part is just I haven't seen anything come through my door that allows me to do that.
That's interesting. Yeah. I wonder, I definitely think in that regard, I'm kind of just, um, I forget the name of it, but it's kind of like the effect where like, oh, it worked for me. So I think it just
Mm.
works in general, which obviously isn't true. Do you think you'll kind of just say maybe one day, like, do you think you'll wait for that thing to happen or one day you'll kind of just be like, you know what, it's time we focus on this or whatever?
Yeah, that's a good
Because
question.
you definitely don't want to pick something you hate because then you're obviously not gonna want to do it.
I've been fortunate in the fact that everything that I've done so far, I've really enjoyed. So I haven't. I'm sure that like if I started doing stuff and it was just like, man, I never want to do one of those types of jobs again. If it came up again, I'd probably be like, no.
Hmm.
And honestly, there is one customer. Um, Although it's with stuff that we enjoy doing, we just don't like dealing with him. So there might come a point where we stop dealing work with them just because we're like, no, you're way too difficult and want stuff way too cheap and
Yeah, I think
unreasonable
everyone runs
timelines.
into that. Yeah,
But the actual type of work that we've gotten into our shop, I don't think there's been anything that I have ever agreed to that I really regretted. Honestly,
yeah,
I might have regretted it in the sense of, um, man, I feel like it. I needed more time, but I've never regretted it in the sense of I'm glad. I wish I hadn't have taken it. If that makes sense.
makes sense. That's the one thing that makes me nervous about going into high volume work because I think a lot of shops kind of do lower end work, not lower end, lower volume, and then I think the goal for a lot of shops is like to get to that high volume, but it can like really hurt you, I think sometimes. That's what makes me nervous because I was talking to a guy who knows a guy in California who has a few Willimans and Matsuras, and he has contracts that pay super well. But if you're late, every day you're late, you owe them 25 grand. Like stuff
Oh
like
yeah.
that. Like for a small business, you would drown so fast. So I'm so scared of things like that. So I'm weary of getting into high volume work. Um, but I don't know. I
Oh,
think you need to just take the risks to actually make good money.
my goal has always been to get into high volume work. And I love optimizing things for production runs.
Yeah, totally.
Um, so like when I did some work for AJ, we did those tape measures
Hmm.
and those aluminum tape measures, and I was for the first run of 25 that we did, I was constantly tweaking and changing tool paths, and I would run a tool path and I would watch it and I'd be like, okay, there's some unnecessary motion there. Let me go see if I can fix that. Oh, maybe if I jump from this point to this point, I could fix that. And like I love optimizing things and seeing how much time I can take off to get it to be as fast as possible.
Yeah,
Although
I agree.
although I have that has bit me in the butt a couple times, not in the sense that um I shouldn't have optimized things, but to the point where I can't leave the machine because things are going so fast that it's just like now I'm stuck being a robot for,
Yeah,
a
I
day
think
or two, and that gets boring.
yeah, for sure. Machining is one of those things where there's so many interwoven variables because it's like I got to make 100 parts. How fast can I get them? And then you pass that threshold where it just went from fast and you save your own time to now I have to stand and watch them, or like now
Mm-hmm.
I just broke more end mills, and it's such a hard thing to track because it's like. Did I spend 10 more minutes or did I save 5 more minutes? This time is worth $50. This time is worth $70. This end mill is $20. This
Yeah.
toolpath saved me $10, 10 minutes, which is $8. Like it's such a hard thing to track.
Well,
So
yeah.
it's like that's like I don't know. It's so I feel like for us we kind of just gotten to the point where it's like I have to make two of these. I'm just doing conservative things and I'm just gonna get it done now. Like
Mm-hmm.
no like I love optimizing stuff, but I've tried to force myself not to when it comes to low volume because I just get so overwhelmed because I'm like this number, this number, this number. I'm like, nah, it's not worth it now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what really started me down that path of optimizing things was I had a job and it was for over 500 pins on the lathe. And with the tooling and the setup that I had, it was 8 minutes apart. And I ended up buying some dedicated tooling that allowed me to get down to like about 2 minutes apart.
Okay, that's awesome.
And so my ROI went through the roof on that job. And I was able to get that all machined in like 1 or 2 days, but I was stuck in front of the machine. And so it's like, it's that's such a trade off. It's like, is it worth setting up the machine for 8 minutes and then I can go quote other jobs, I can check emails, I can do something else, and then when it beeps, I go back over, set the next one up, or do I lose all my computer productivity for that day or future job productivity today for standing in front of the machine? But I've got it optimized to where my hourly rate is through the roof, but at the same time, I'm not getting more jobs coming in the shop because I'm stuck in front of the machine.
Yeah,
Can I
for
point out
sure.
that's kind of can I point out that's kind of a logical fallacy? Because let's say you're
Awesome.
running the same part in 2 minutes versus 8 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
and you're upset that you don't have that time to multitask. You could literally just set a timer, run the part for 2 minutes, and then come back 8 minutes later. Like you're still
Yeah, that's
creating
true.
time. You're creating machine time, I suppose.
Yeah.
And it would be better in my head to, let's say at the beginning of the day, you say, I'm going to do 2 hours of parts, and then I'm going to spend 6 hours, which I basically created by optimizing my cycle time. And I'm going to use that 6 hours to focus on computer work because then you're not interrupted. You don't have that switching task cost in your brain every time. So you'd actually be
That's a good
way more
point.
productive in your head on your computer work. You're
That's
just
Yeah,
a very
shifting
good
the
point.
these are
time.
the things you have to think about. It gets
Yeah.
really complicated. I wonder if it makes sense to kind of designate value to everything you do. Like we don't prioritize here value of our time enough only because we don't pay ourselves or employees, but I know it's obviously really valuable. So is it like, oh, me checking emails that costs me this much an hour, or like me running parts that costs me, but it also makes me money because if I wasn't running the parts, I wouldn't be making money. So it's like I wonder if we should be putting like a dollar sign on all our different time because things like make me different money. Like buying material that doesn't make me money. Like that's a waste of time, but it's like necessary. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I don't remember if I heard it or read it in a book, but I remember hearing something along the lines of imagine that you have to pay yourself $1,000 an hour and prioritize your day based off of that.
Yeah, yeah, that's valid. Kind of just if make everything as efficient as possible. What kind of reading do you guys do?
I do not like reading. I love audiobooks.
Same.
So
That's all I do.
I think when we say reading, we all mean audiobooks.
I always say reading, and then someone always calls it out like you don't read, you listen to audiobooks. I'm like, okay, it's not technically reading because I suck at reading, but like I'm still gaining knowledge. Like that's what I
no,
mean.
I totally understand. Um I mean, I have a bunch of audiobooks that I've listened to, and I have a lot more than I need to in my backlog to catch up on. But I mean, I Mike Michalowicz.
Oh, we're doing this
Um,
now.
oh, what's that?
That man sounds familiar. It sounds familiar.
This is my total listening time on Audible. I am currently at 6 months, 4 days, 20 hours, and 31 minutes of
Okay,
time
that's actually
spent listening
crazy.
to audiobooks.
I
That
think
does
you
not include
re-listen to a lot
podcasts
of
or
stuff
YouTube
though,
videos.
right?
I do. I've got about 300 books in my library right now, but I have
How do
re-listened
you
to
find that
many
listening
books.
time? 26 minutes. Okay, yeah, I have a long way to go. 17 days.
Yeah,
Where do you find that at?
it's in like the stats
Listening time.
section. It's on the
So
far right tab.
I know AJ, you and I nerd out about sci-fi a lot. Do you try to have like a set schedule? Because I don't find business books interesting. I love sci-fi a lot. So what I do now is I do a sci-fi, then a business book, then a sci-fi, then a business book. And I feel like it kind of helped me squeeze in those business books while still like wanting to listen more. Do you have any kind of schedule, or do you kind of just like, oh, I like this, I'm gonna read this?
So I have broken this lately, which I can't really explain why. I guess other than my brain has been more full lately. Um, but I listen to both a business book and a nonfiction book at the same time,
That's
and I
terrible.
will just play a
How
different
do
one
you do that?
depending on what I'm wanting to listen to. I don't know. I just do it.
That's impressive. I could not do that.
So, but actually, I think it's really since I started reading this current series I'm on, which is A Wheel in Time,
Oh man,
and
my brother's
it
obsessed
is
with that.
it is so long, and I've listened to it almost. Yeah, I've listened to all of the books straight through, and it's something like 300 or 400 hours of audiobook, and I'm on the last book now, and I haven't been listening to business books with that. Um, I guess just because I'm focused on it. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. What about you, Harrison? Do you like just business books? No business books?
Oh, I love business books. I love stories, so I go off into really cool. I like fiction, nonfiction stories, historical stuff, um, business books, like discovering stuff like The Power of Habits was a good book. Um, as long as I can find interest in the topic, I will probably listen to it. Um, but it has to be something. It has to be something that I'm at least a little bit interested in.
Makes
But
sense.
Mike, I'm not really limited to any category.
I've definitely
Um,
gotten more into history because, like, you'll be listening to, like, watching a YouTube short or, like, listening to Joe Rogan, and they pull out some wild fact about some ancient guy that did this awesome thing. And you're like, dang, if I knew about history and, like, these cool people, I would know all these, like, cool facts too. So now I listen to, like, a bunch of history books, and I just have, like, random facts about, like, old dudes from, like, 1400s. But I don't know. I think history is really cool. But I didn't
yeah.
used to. I feel like school sucks at teaching history. But then, like, when you actually want to when you like want to learn history on your own, I feel like it's actually way cooler.
So
Well,
that's interesting because I went the opposite way. When I was like back in high school, I was super interested in history. I'd watch World War II documentaries and whatever else. Um, but then, like in college, I started to focus down on engineering and business more. And like, I don't know, I just kind of stopped caring about the history stuff as much. Though,
Okay, that's interesting.
though lately, I heard someone talk. I don't remember if it was a TED talk or just like some comment in a podcast. I don't remember where this came from. But basically, someone said that like as you study something, eventually you'll get to a point where like you can keep studying the same freely available stuff, and you're just not going to go. You're not going to learn anymore. And basically, you have to practice, or you have to go get stuff from other industries. And so like I've been, and it's really hard to do intentionally, but I've been trying to find more industries and more things that cross over into what I do. So like, I the other day I watched some art history videos. I've been trying to learn more about programming, And that's where I get to the stuff like this generative art that I'm doing on the tape measures.
Yeah.
Uh, is
See,
trying to figure out how to cross more things in with what I'm doing.
that makes sense. I find that interesting. And then I also find it interesting how you see really rich people and then they tell you like when you start your business, like hire your weaknesses. Like don't waste your time learning things when you could just hire people that are already good at it. And I'm like, will I ever have employees or do I just need to suck it up and learn these things myself? So I don't know. I just try to learn things because I think it's cool. Like I think it's like, oh wow, in 50 years I can actually maybe be smart. Like that'd be cool. So I don't know. That's why I do it, but um, I feel like it's so hard to learn so many different things. I tried for a long time to learn programming, and like I just came to the conclusion that I'm horrible at it, and I literally don't understand it. Maybe Chat GPT can help me with that one day. I was messing around with that with some Arduino code, but I was like, I don't, I hate this stuff. I'm so bad at it. So I don't know.
Yeah, I've it is interesting because it's a balancing act between you want to always continually be learning, but you don't want to be so ADD that you go into so much stuff that you don't learn anything. And
Yeah, for sure.
you also need to specialize in whatever you're doing, but don't become so hyper specialized that you can't do anything else. It's like everything is a trade off. Everything is a balancing act.
Yeah, for sure. Uh, AJ, I was actually curious for you with the kick.
You broke up there. Can you say that again, please?
Can you hear me now? I accidentally hit the mute button. Um, with the Kickstarters, do you kind of realize do you kind of see like an algorithm like with YouTube? A lot of the bigger YouTubers kind of like figure out the algorithm, like Mr. Beast. He just has it like down pat. Do you kind of see a way to kind of figure out the algorithm on Kickstarter so that you can kind of do like serial Kickstarters?
So I don't. Kickstarter is not super heavy algorithm based. There's just not enough content on there. It's not YouTube where there's like 2 years of video being uploaded every day or whatever that stat is.
Mhm.
There's a couple projects that go up every day, and so there's not just like Kickstarter doesn't have to deal with just the overwhelming flood of media these other platforms do. So they don't really have the same algorithm issues. Basically, as long as you're in the right category and maybe have a few keywords that people have been interested in the past, like then you'll get put on their front page or they're suggested. I think I think the bigger thing is making stuff that people want at a price they want to pay for it. If your prices are way too high, they aren't going to buy it. If your price is way too low, they're not going to buy it. If your price is right, but it's the wrong thing, they're not going to buy it. So as long as you find something that is what people want to buy, you'll start to gain momentum, and then Kickstarter will push you in their algorithm. It's more about
Okay, that
momentum
makes
than
sense.
anything else.
Okay. Do you think you've kind of I don't know how long you've been doing design and everything, but do you think since when you started, like you've seen more of like a trend of what people want? Is there almost like a people algorithm where it's like people like this thing more and you could kind of crack that eventually and then kind of just make consistently good products? Obviously there's not everything is going to be a winner, but like a good majority will be really good products.
The biggest thing that I have learned is it doesn't matter how much you think you have people figured out. You will be wrong 90% of the time. And like even the big huge companies like Apple, Nike, McDonald's, whatever, they make stuff and sometimes people don't buy it even though they've invested literally billions of dollars in developing some of these products. They lose money on it. So what I have learned is don't waste time and money developing things that you aren't sure that people want. And the only way to find out what people want is developing those things in public. So I have my prototype of the month Patreons. They see all the development behind my stuff, and they get a early one. And basically, my litmus test is if it moves on. If they're excited about it, they like it, then I make it. If they aren't excited about it and they don't like it, then it just goes in a drawer somewhere.
Yeah, I think your Kickstarter is actually really, not your Kickstarter, your Patreon is really valuable like that. It's like it's super cheap, if not making you money prototyping. I think what you said before is so true because I saw a post on LinkedIn. I think it was McDonald's a while back made a 1/3 pounder to like kind of as a meme against like the quarter pounder from Burger King, but no one bought it because they thought it was less meat than the quarter pounder. So they had to stop it. It's like you're never gonna actually understand how people work because they're always just gonna have some curveball. Um, so I think that's actually a really interesting point. And you also, I saw somewhere you said that you don't think you're going to be making your own things anymore besides prototyping. Do you think that will hurt your margins, but in the long run, it'll be better off for you?
It may technically hurt my margins, but I don't really care about my margins. What I care about is the number of dollars earned for the number of, actually, not even the number of hours that I work. It's the number of dollars earned per month, really. Like it, high
Okay.
margins don't feed families like dollars do. And if I can get more throughput and get more dollars for the same amount of time, like that's what I need. Is I need that cash flow.
Okay, so you're more interested in cash flow than margins. I actually find that interesting because, like, I always prioritize margins because I'm like, oh, the more I make per dollar I spend, that's great. But then I'm like, wait, what am I doing with that money that I'm making? I'm like, I don't know. So I think cash flow is actually an interesting way to look at it. Um, that's definitely interesting. And so when you came up with that $100,000 goal, is that kind of just a goal you want to hit, or is that like, I need 8 grand, 8 and change grand a month cash flow, and that's gonna keep me afloat plus some kind of buffer?
Yeah, that's basically like bare minimum what I need to run, design the everything, and feed my family.
Okay. So you technically have all your margins built into that, but you're not looking at those margins because they're built into that 100 grand number.
Correct. I mean, I'm looking at margins. Like, I'm not going to make things that don't make me money, obviously.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
Like, I am paying attention to it, but I would rather, I would rather make, let's say tape measures. Let's say I sell them for $100, which I will. And if I make them myself, they cost me, $40. Or if Harrison makes them for me, they cost $50. Like, if I can sell twice as many tape measures and I'm just losing $10, but I got to focus my time on, the marketing and the packaging and the shipping and the next package and, coming on the podcast and doing interviews or whatever. Like, in the long run, I make more money that way.
Makes
In the
sense.
short run, maybe it costs me a little bit more, but like I'm a one man band. I'm doing everything here, and if I try to do it all, I don't get any of it done. So
Makes sense. Harrison's definitely agreeing because he's like, yeah, give me all that work.
No, well, it's one of those things where AJ does a really good job at what he does, and I want to do products, but none of my products have been successful like AJ's. So it's a very healthy relationship, I think, for both of us, because I like doing the higher volume stuff. That's where I really do really well, and so far AJ's been a lot more successful at products than I have been. So I'm
Yeah,
hoping I
that
can make
totally
him more
makes sense.
successful.
I
So
for a while was trying to come up with the products, and then I'm like, this just isn't right. So right now we're just gonna focus on job shop work. I think you
yeah,
just need to figure out what you're good at, and then like
yeah,
even if it's not a niche so much, like you can still be good at a wide variety thing, and then just do well at that, or just focus
yeah.
on that.
Now my experience with products has helped me to be able to have more skills that I can make stuff for people and fulfill their needs. Like with the designing from or coming up with something from scratch and making it into a reality. My experience with products has helped that process a lot. So, when someone says they want something made as a one-off, or they want 10 of something that's custom, I am way more comfortable doing it because I can take it from start to anodized product or cerakoted product or whatever type of finished state they want it in.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. And AJ, do you think you'll be doing products for the foreseeable future, or would you ever do like prototype job shop work, or products is like your thing?
so if it's just me, as long as it's just me, yes, I'm only going to be doing products. Um, there. or white labeled products. If somebody wants me to design them a product and they're going to sell them, and I'll take care of the back end, that's fine with me. I'll do that too. I see a world. This is my vision of Design the Everything. Is Design the Everything will be several independent companies, either legally distinct business entities or the same, different departments of the same business, whatever. But I see it as having a couple different like product brands. Better Keychains, the Design the Everything product brand. Parametric Tools is one that I'm eventually going to start working on, and so on. But then I will also have Design the Everything Media, which will basically be a media company that uses the other companies to create content. Going through, taking Instagram videos, taking YouTube videos, educational, whatever. And then I will have Design the Everything Manufacturing, which will both take outside work, but also basically treat those other brands as if they were companies. So those brands would come to Design the Everything Manufacturing and be like, hey, we need these parts made. And they'll just get them scheduled. That way the Design the Everything, the brands, the product brands don't need to worry about how they're going to do any of the manufacturing. And the Design the Everything Manufacturing doesn't need to worry about how they're going to design stuff. So I can hire machinists for Design the Everything Manufacturing. I can hire product designers for the Design the Everything products.
And are you mostly breaking that into multiple businesses for tax reasons?
So,
is there any tax benefits behind that?
I don't know if they're going to be different business entities or if they're going to be just different names on different departments. I don't know yet.
Okay.
I don't care yet. I'm
I see
still
what you're saying.
5 to 10 years away from this.
I find it kind of interesting that you started Better Keychains, because I kind of feel like that would almost detract from like a main focus. You probably obviously have some reasoning that I can't see, but that's kind of my theory with that. Obviously you have different reasoning for that?
So here's the kind of ironic portion is that
Okay.
I did that so I could focus more. And
interesting. Okay.
So basically I have, all these ideas and all these various things that I want to do at the same time. And when all of those ideas existed as Design the Everything in my head, it's like, oh, I can do any of these at any time. And then I was getting nothing done. The idea behind Better Keychains is I wanted a separate brand that I could break off and have distinct, branding and marketing and product design from Design the Everything, that I could then push everything aside and just focus on that. So lately, all of my products I've been working on, except the tape measure, which was kind of a weird circumstance, those have all been focused on Better Keychains. Like my new little screwdrivers here, Better Keychains, the pry bars, the carabiners, the wristlets, lanyards. And I am just focusing on Better Keychains until I can have that basically self-sustaining without me. That's my goal.
Okay.
So by separating it, I'm able to focus more.
Okay, interesting. So is that more for your own intents, changing that name? Because like on the Instagram end of things, or like the social media end of things, are you active on the Better Keychains one? Because I think I follow both, and I think I only see you on the Design Everything. Excuse me. So from that end of things, I think that's what was confusing me. The fact that it's all coming from the same social media.
You're right. I have not been active with Better Keychains. I should be.
I mean, when you have 10,000 followers, though, compared to however many Better Keychains has,
like
it's got to be hard to let me go put a story and let 50 people see it compared to, I don't know, probably a few thousand see it.
Part of my problem, and I need to fix this, as part of my problem is when I started the Better Keychains Instagram page, I wanted to be very different than my Design the Everything page. I wanted to have basically all bright colors, and I wanted it to be more highly produced content and pictures than I do on my Design the Everything page, which is very, we'll call it raw. It's artesian. It's
nice.
Rustic. And those higher effort posts take a lot of effort, and I just haven't had the time for them. So
I've been so bad with social media too.
My theory is when I can get someone else in here, they can pick it up. My first hire is almost certainly going to be well, one, someone who can multitask, but also somebody who is more design and like media focused than me.
Okay, that makes sense for sure. Harrison, who do you think your first hire will be? What kind of person would you like that to be? What kind of tasks would you like them to fill? And do you see that happening soon?
Uh, my first hire is probably going to be an intern from one of the classes I teach in the evening at university. So I teach an intro to CNC class part time in the evenings, and I have a lot of students there who are young, aspiring engineers who have no idea what machining is. And so I'm trying to do a couple things. Engineering schools in general do a really bad job of showing engineers what machinists do and what
How things are
how
literally
things are
made?
made. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely nothing.
And so I would love to hire an intern and allow me to basically practice having someone around for a couple months at a time and being able to let them go, have them for a summer, um, figure out how do I need to structure things so I can bring someone in full time, and then go from there. That's what I really want to do.
I think that's a really good idea because you're literally like interviewing these kids 24/7 practically. Like you're
Hmm.
always interviewing kids. Um, like some of the kids I went to college with were like literal geniuses, had like 10
Hmm.
times more energy than me and like way more drive. So like I think that's convenient because you'll find someone out there that'll work like that's willing to work just as much, if not more than you. And
Hmm.
like someone that you'll literally have to tell to go home and be like, no, you're done working for the day. So
Yeah.
that could be really good. And also, like, I feel like kids are really smart at like computer stuff or just specific things, and they bring a new approach to things. And especially
Yeah.
like the lazy aspect of this, like the newer generations. I know a lot of like older machinists like crap on like young kids, like, oh, so lazy, whatever. It's like, it might not be a good skill to have, but in terms of business, lazy can be really important sometimes because they're like, why am I going to take 5 steps if I can take one? And it's like, oh, you
Yeah.
just saved me money. So I think
Hmm.
going after a younger person is a good idea.
I
You're
don't
the
remember
youngest
who
one here. I'm not sure you're allowed to do the kids these days
Yeah,
rant.
that's true.
Are you like
I when
number
I said that,
two?
I was like, it's probably not.
Yeah, this is where me and AJ start stroking our beards
Yes.
as we watch. No.
Uh, even
I
though
Uh,
like to
he's
I like to
probably
think that
has.
I'm not a kid just because I'm out of college, but that's only because I dropped out. I would still be there if I was like if I didn't drop out, I would have still been there. So I guess I am still in that kid's age bracket, which is
To
fine.
be to be fair, you
yeah.
probably have the most successful shop out of all of us right now. So
Yeah, I was gonna say that's probably true.
we can give us this
I
age thing.
I
This is the
hate when
one thing we
people
have.
I hate when people say that though because I feel like it's like like people will message me like, "Oh, you're doing so well." And I'm like, "Bro, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Like, we have a machine
Yeah.
in the corner that literally needs to be split in two
So
for
we're
it to
running out of
work."
time. We're running out of time, but we really need to hear this story.
Okay,
So
yeah.
go through why you
So,
decided to go with the machine you did over the its cousin machine that everybody else gets, and
um,
then the problems you had with it.
so I chose the Fanuc over the Brother Speedio. Fanuc is really local to us. Brother isn't so much. Um, the Foxconn in China has 200,000 robo drills. I kind of just thought that was like, wow, if someone is willing to buy 200,000 robo drills, it's probably a good machine. They're pretty much universally known as like one of the most rock solid machines you can buy. They're completely reliable, and having the sill and having a lot of money go through the $30,000 sill has kind of made me prioritize. Um, the word just went out of my head. Reliability. I didn't really think about how important reliability and customer service is until you actually like, oh crap, my spindle just stopped working and I have to ship a $10,000 job in 2 days because Xometry lead times. So um, the office, so Methods is the importer, and then we bought our machine from Maruka because Methods doesn't service our area. Maruka is like 40 minutes from us, so they're like, you ever crash a spindle, we'll be there in like 40 minutes. So having that is pretty much why I chose the Fanuc over the Brother. And also like the Fanuc control is really popular. Uh, and if we get Swiss lays, it'll probably be Fanuc. So that was that reason. And then I met our sales guy before we went to IMTS because Mariah Manufacturing, yeah, it was like meet your sales guys before you go to IMTS because you're a kid and they won't take you seriously when you're at IMTS. So I did that. I had the sales guy, and for some reason the president showed up also from Ruka to my garage, and I have the whole family inside, like looking through the windows. I'm like, this is so bad. I need a shop. But so those guys came to my shop, and then I met them, and then I met them again at IMTS, and it was nice. I definitely recommend you meet your sales guys before IMTS because then they actually take you seriously at IMTS. So we met him, and then we were looking at the machine options, and that's when we were pretty much like ready to buy it. We didn't go to IMTS ready to buy it, but we got caught up in the hype. And my uncle was like, we were with my uncle. He's a Mazak salesman. He was like, oh, you should buy it. You should buy it. So we kind of just got sucked into buying it. It was definitely our own decision, but so we were kind of planning out what we want, and we're like, oh, we'll get the Renishaw package. We don't want dual spindle contact. That's just unnecessarily expensive for the small parts we make. So, and then we were like, oh, it's still a little expensive. What else can we get rid of? Because the table on that machine the 5-axis is a brand new model. It has like extra clearance on the side. We wanted that because we use like big slitting saws. And those tables from Sudocoma. That one was like 60 grand, but we got a really good IMTS discount. But like 60 grand for a literal, not even the machine, the table that goes on the machine. So we were like, we really needed to get prices lower. So the salesman was like, you can get rid of the riser. So the machine is like the column, then the base, and then like the C frame. Excuse me. Um, and they were like, there's a riser in there, which is usually what you put on when you have a trunnion table, because the Z travel on Fanucs are terrible at the bottom end and the top end. So he was like, yeah, the riser's a couple grand. Let's pull that out. And he's like, your clearance will be a little less, but like, hey, it saves you a couple grand. So we're like, sure. Um, then we end up buying the machine. They offered us a good IMTS discount, so we got it. Gets in here a couple weeks ago. The Fanuc techs come. Then the issues start popping up. They pull our Renishaw probe out of the package. Methods had dropped it, so there's a big dent in it. So they were like, I was like, this thing's really expensive, and they were like, they were super good about it. Maruka was. They're like, we're gonna get you a new one. They didn't even like ask us or tell us. They're like, hey, look, this is dented. We're getting you a new one. Okay, awesome. And they're like, oh, and for some reason they lost the grub screws and they left the batteries on, so your probe is dead. So we can't do the probe training today. So I was like, oh, that's great. Um, and then the Sudocoma trunnion it was a week late to ship, so that finally shipped. And then the guy comes, they put it on the table. Then they realize like the 5-axis is here, and then the rail for the 5-axis connectors are over here. And it's supposed to be on the same side. Not a huge deal, like it's livable. And then they pull the cables out for the trunnion table, and both sides are female connectors, so they can't connect anything. So then we have to wait longer because we have to overnight the cables back to Coma Precision, which is like kind of like the methods of Sudocoma, because Sudocoma is also in Japan. So we send those to Coma. Coma sends them back. We get the table set up, and then we had to get extra long wires so we could run the cables all the way around the machine to the rail of wires because it was on the wrong side. And then I'm like looking, I'm like, why is this thing so low? Like the spindle is so low. So I put my adapter plate on the spindle face of the trunnion, and then I put my Lang plate on, and then I put one of our Lang fixtures on that we use a lot. And then there's a 5-inch gauge length tool in the spindle, which is pretty average. Like for like a 3/8 ml, I think it was like a 4.5. It was something like that's average, or maybe a little bit tall. But there's like, here's this tool, and then like the fixture ended like here. There was literally no room. Like I can't. I'm not making like parts this big. Sometimes I do, but like sometimes I stick a bar up this big and then I cut it down. So like it was like literally unusable. And then the guy's like, "What the heck?" So he checks in the back, and he's like, "I've worked for this company for years, and I've never once ever seen a trunnion, a Fanuc with a trunnion without the riser." He's like, you should have never been sold a machine without the riser. So we're like, oh, great. Like, what do we do now? And then one of the guys, there were two dudes here. Um, he was like, I think we should ship it back and get you a new machine. And we're like, oh my gosh, this is so nerve wracking. Like, this is our first big boy machine, and now they want to ship it back. And they're like, or maybe we'll send, or maybe we'll ship it out, have methods pop the top off, slide in the riser, and then put it down, because they do that. They don't do that in Japan. Methods is the one who does that here. They do it like 10 times a day, all the time. Or they're like, or we can get a rigger in here, literally strap the top of your machine, pull it up, even though like 90% of the weight is here. So it's going to tilt like this. We'll raise it up. We'll slide the 4-inch block in lower and bolt it all together. Meanwhile, it's going to be like 10 hours of the rigger here, and riggers are so expensive. I refuse to pay for any of this, though. So we'll be fighting that battle this week. And so now we're kind of at a crossroads, because that was right before Christmas, and they're like, "Well, we're off for the next week and next Monday, so we'll get back here Tuesday." And we're like, "Fine. I'm not going to make you work Christmas. Like I'm not going to do that. Like, not a big deal." Um, so now tomorrow we will have a verdict on whether or not we send the machine back, or whether or not they're going to pop it in half here and slide that riser in. Oh, and while we were getting training, the guy accidentally crashed the tool into the Renishaw probe, which you may have seen in my story. But not only did he crash it into the little bendy part, he actually crashed it into the body, which then broke the tip. So I need an actual whole new tool setter, which they're getting, because they completely know that it was their fault, and they're being good about it. But it's just been such a mess. Like, everyone at Maruka is great, but like, just like issue after issue, and it's just adding up, and it's really it's getting a little stressful, because I need to make money on that thing, because I was telling people, I'm like, yeah, I'm getting like a 5-axis in December. Of course it'll be up and running in January. Like, yeah, I have like, yeah, I'll take your jobs. So I have a couple jobs that may come through in January, and now I don't have a potential machine for it. So it might get tricky, but I think it'll all work out, I hope. So yeah, that was the long-winded story of the Fanic update.
That is a crazy story. Now, have you ever done any 5-axis before? Or are you?
No, nothing at all. So I also have to learn that. I mean, right now it's just I'm only like taking 3+2 work. The 5-axis simultaneous package, 4+1 and full five was a $15,000 package. So we held off on that for now. If we get a job for it, then that's something I'll buy, and then like get the return on that during the first job. Um, but yeah, just 3+2 right now, but still haven't done that either. So yeah, it should be interesting.
3+2 is 99% of 5-axis work.
Yeah, that's pretty much what everyone says. Um, we do 4+1 would actually be pretty convenient, because we have like long ratio small parts sometimes. So I just get like a thick bar and then like lay it down and just like turn most of it out. Um, I don't know. I think 3+2 will definitely be leagues ahead of what we're doing right now anyway. So I can live with 3+2. But yeah, should be interesting. Also, like, the spindle on this thing is crazy. I don't know how long it takes the Tormach to spin up to, what is it, 10K RPM? So the sill takes from a tool change to spin up to 12K to a tool change is 20 seconds. This thing is 1.9 seconds from 24K to tool change to 24K. Like, 24K is literally like this. It's insane. And it sounds like it's crazy. It sounds like it's gonna explode. I'm so scared of it.
Can you run that spindle at 24K for a long time, or is it one of those things where like it can do 24K but keep it under 18K most of the time?
The salesman told us we have shops that run 24K all day, and I was like, okay, like, I'm not going to do that. That doesn't sound like a good idea anyway. But then when the apps guys were here installing it, they're like, yeah, we really don't recommend it. I think it would be fine, but now on the newest control, the newest HMI control, they have a little like timer that lets you know like how long you've been running 24K and like if you should stop soon. But honestly, 24K sounds so annoying that I don't even think I'll run it that long. And the high volume work we're quoting right now is 4140 and 17.4. So we're not really going to be hitting that surface footage anyway, even with like a 16th inch end mill, maybe, or a high feed mill probably. Definitely want to run that as high as I can. But 24K, I don't really want to do too much of anyway. It's just a pain. It sounds awful.
I really need a faster spindle. I'm the like going
Yeah.
from my old Tormach of 5K to this Tormach of 10K was a world of difference. But like, man, when I had that Pocket NC that had the 50K spindle, that thing was the best.
Yeah, for sure. I'm very excited to use it, especially because like we do a lot of work with small tools. Um, and another thing that I think that's under prioritized is like the machine acceleration, especially when you're doing like adaptive strategies. Like the sim time in Fusion is nowhere near the actual time in reality because your acceleration sucks on the lower end machines. Like the sill acceleration is, I'm gonna say it's not that good. Um, the Fanic acceleration is like bananas. So for like small roughing strategies, it'll do really well. So that should be interesting. But it's also like one wrong button press and you just like instantly cook everything in there. So I do like though, like for the sill, you have a 25%, a 50%, 100% speed. Like, why is there not like a 5%? Like, if I'm actually scared, 25 still feels like crazy fast. The Fanic goes all the way down to like 4%, um, like really, really slow, which is nice. So I do like that. Uh, but I hate that most controls only let you go down to 25% speed. Because if you bring in a scary tool, it's still like really fast and it's scary.
Yeah, that's one area where Tormach actually has probably the best because it can go from 100 to 0. So
Oh,
you
okay,
can
that's awesome.
yeah you can go all the way down to where it's basically a feed hold at that point.
Okay, that's really nice.
So yeah, have you noticed a big? And I don't know if I've asked this or not. Have you noticed a big difference between the Tormach and your sill?
Oh yeah, 100%. Um, I didn't realize how much I disliked the Tormach until I got the cell because it was just what
Mhm.
I knew. Um, I don't want to say anything bad about the Tormach. I don't really think the 440 is like a job shop machine. I definitely would never recommend that again, and I would
Mhm.
never recommend this stupid straight taper again. Like literal worst design on the planet. I know a lot of people never had issues with it. For the life of us, we could not get the spindle to stop pulling the stupid tool out. We did everything that everyone recommended: the Belleville washers, cleaning the taper, changing this, changing that. Nothing worked. So that was probably my biggest pet peeve with it. Um, but like the accelerations on this machine are a lot faster, more horsepower. I think compared to an 1100 MX, it's probably not as different. Like going from the 440 to the sill isn't even a fair comparison. But I would be interested to compare like an 1100 MX to, or just an 1100 to the sill.
How much horsepower did you have in your sill?
I want to say it's 5, but we got the single phase one. The 3 phase one is 7.5, I think.
Oh wow, 5 is
The
Yeah,
sill
still
is it's much fairer to compare the sill to a Haas mini mill than it is a Tormach.
yeah.
I would say the sills
Like
are still
Tormach,
kind of a whole
you might be
class up
talking
from the
actually.
Tormachs.
You froze.
yeah. I
And
would
like,
I
how
would
much do they
probably
weigh? They're
agree.
like 4,000 pounds, right?
Hello.
Are you still here, James?
Oh, yep. Okay, I hear you now.
How much does the sill weigh?
4,000 pounds.
Okay. And
Yeah,
the Tormach 440 is like
400 pounds.
96 wet.
yeah,
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 yeah, it's very small. Yeah, like I don't even like comparing them because it's not a fair comparison.
yeah.
Um, I think Tormach isn't really Sill's not really looking to go up against the Tormach. Well, maybe it is, but I think the Tormach just does some things so well. Like the control, like you can teach someone how to use that control in a half an hour. Upload program, press button, like go. Tool height, figuring out tool heights, piece of cake. Um, Cutter comp, so easy. Like they did such a good job with the control. Our control is more of like a Fanic ripoff, so it's a little more complicated. Um, Obviously, this thing's going to be more rigid than a Tormach, but I think um, they're different machines. I think they're trying to target different people. I think it's more comparable to like a Haas mini mill, which I think it's definitely better than because the after Rona, the Haas mini mill and most Haas's are just like completely like way higher prices now. And apparently, like I'm hearing from a lot of people that the Haas quality has suffered really badly since Corona. I don't know how much of that is just Haas hate because Haas gets a lot of hate in general from people that move up to bigger machines. But I know a guy who had to literally like return his UMC 500. So I don't know. A little weary to get a Haas. I probably wouldn't, but I don't know. They're definitely money makers. I think that's what matters.
I think it depends on the kind of work you're doing. Like,
Yeah.
I could totally use honestly, an old worn out Haas would be fine for me because I'm not doing much material removal. I don't need tight tolerances. As long as it's good enough most of the time, that's fine for me.
Yeah, totally.
Something like a super mini mill or a TMOP, like that would be fine. But
And they do hold their value really well. Still, I don't think it's had the time and its lifespan to like see how well the value holds up for their newer machines. But like a used Toss mini mill, it's like a Tacoma. It's like the Tacoma of the machine world. They just hold their value so well, the older ones.
Well, I think we're getting close to time here. At least I'm tired. So, should we wrap it up? Any final thoughts?
Oof, I don't know. I think I said enough.
Give us your plug, social media, website, whatever.
Oh, Cerven Solutions is our Instagram handle. Yeah, I think that's it. That's all I have right now.
Have I been saying your name wrong? Is it
Maybe.
Cerven?
Yeah, it's Cerven.
I've been saying Cerven. Like
I mean, like that's a pretty minute detail. People say like Curvin, like that's a big detail.
Yeah.
But like Cerven is like that's totally fine. But I mean, I wouldn't say Cerven, but that's because that's not how I learned how to say it.
Say it one more time.
Cerven, kind of like an in at the end. That's just how I say it, though.
I'm gonna
Cerven is honestly probably like the proper way to say it.
It's not. It sounds like you just schooled someone in basketball or something.
Yeah,
you've just been serving.
Yeah,
or something.
Okay. On that note, Harrison, am I saying your name right?
It's actually Hassan, but
Oh, how dare you, AJ?
No. Yeah, I think that's about it. Well, James, we appreciate you coming on the podcast, and AJ, thanks for setting this up. It was great to meet you and
definitely
have this conversation. I love hearing about where other people have come from and how they got started and where they're at and where they're wanting to go.
Yeah, for sure. If you're ever in New York, hit me up.
Oh, definitely. And if you're ever in Arkansas, which I don't know why you would be, come by.
Everyone that lives in Arkansas says that. Like, I don't know why you'd ever be here, but it seems like a nice state.
It honestly, Indiana.
Yeah, it honestly is, but only because we're in the northwest corner where Walmart is. So
nice.
So like everything's like really nice, and then you step out like an hour or two from where I'm at, and it's like the quality of stuff just like drops.
It's the same with upstate New York. Past 2 hours past the city, everything is like the Midwest then.
Mm-hmm. But well, it's been good. So I guess I'll do the outro. So this is Harrison with Design the Everything with our guest from James from Cerven Solutions, and got it. And AJ with Design the Everything. Please like, share, and tell all your friends about us, and we'll see you again next week.
Bye.